What's the most what the frick moment with your siblings? Story 1. I tell this story anytime I get a chance to embarrass my brother. I was about 9, making him about 6. Thanksgiving dinner at our grandparents' house. We were both in the kitchen together, just the two of us, each with a slice of pumpkin pie. My little brother grabs the salt shaker from the table, slowly unscrews the cap and dumps the entire shaker of salt on his pie and eats the whole thing, making eye contact with me the whole time. He had this look like he knew what he was doing, so I didn't question it. 20 minutes later, he's chasing a cousin through the hall. He dead stops, says, "Uh-oh," and projectile vomits all over the walls and floor. He is descended upon by adults asking him what the matter is. His response? Too much salt. I was the only one who knew what he meant. Story 2. I had just finished riding my bike home from a friend's place to see my mom pull into the driveway. Out of the other side of the car, my sister's had popped out. She'd been off to college and I didn't expect to see her. My first thought, which I openly said because I was a little piece of crap, was, why sis home? She get knocked up in college? Out steps my very pregnant sister. It was a rare double what the F moment, as I was surprised to see her that pregnant. And both my sister and mom were shocked at my accurate joke guess and inappropriate guess, to be fair. Story 3. My girlfriend's brother called. They never talk, distant/strained relationship, and she looks at me like, why is he calling? I joked, he's calling to tell you he's getting married. She tells me to shut up. A few minutes later, she comes back, he's getting married. I joked again, I guess he knocked this girl up. She says, no. A few days later, the pregnancy announcement is up on Facebook. Sometimes jokes hit a little too close to home. Now we gotta sit through an awkward wedding pretending everyone else is happy about this. Guess what? They're not. Edit. The couple to be married is happy about it, or so he insists. It's just nobody else is happy. Everybody feels like this is a huge mistake, especially considering this girl has gone out of her way to meet his mother once, living in the same town. And they both live with their parents still and have known each other for less than a year and have been dating less than that. Maybe we're just all cynical a-holes, and these two actually have the key to... Who am I kidding? I give it 6 years, tops. Story 4. I was out on a car ride with my dad and we arrived back at the house at like 3 a.m. My front door opens straight into my kitchen and I throw open the door expecting an empty kitchen, only to see my brother, butt naked, standing in front of the sink. I screamed, why the F are you naked? He scrambled back to the shower. Apparently he was mid-shower, his back hurt, so he went to the kitchen to start heating water for a hot water bottle for his back. And then also just stopped to have a snack or something while waiting for the water to boil, all while leaving the shower running. My dad still laughs about it. Story 5. When I was younger, I was playing outside when I heard my little brother giggling like a maniac around the other side of the house in the backyard. I went to see what was going on, and he was gleefully peeing into my dog's open mouth as the dog was lapping it up, while dangerously close to his doodle. Edit. A bonus story. I'll tell you about the time my brother almost caught me smoking when I was in high school. So there's a barn across from a small pond by my house. One winter, my friend Murph and I were sparking up in the upper floor. We hear the dogs get let outside and someone mumbling, and we peek out the window so that we can keep tabs on whoever it was outside. My little brother is walking towards a frozen pond with a pickaxe and then begins to break apart the ice. After he's chopped it up a bit, he crouches down like a monkey, takes a chunk of pond ice and begins eating it while looking back and forth to make sure nothing sneaked up on him while he ate. It was like watching the damn Nature Channel. Edit 2. Okay, let's talk about my stepbrother for a second since this got so popular. This dude is a gold mine of dumb stuff. Not as much WTF material, more just how dumb is this dude? Not many are stories I can make into something of length, so I'll just do snippets. He brought a blank Uzi over to my house and asked me if he could fire it out the room of my window. I told him, no, it's going to sound like you're firing a frickin' gun. He did it anyway, and then was shocked to find out it sounded so loud. To cover his tracks, he went downstairs to see if my family heard it. He came back later by saying, I told him we were popping balloons, with a smug look on his face. He once offered me $100 to blow up a weather balloon in my room until it popped. I declined. In the dead of winter, he propped up a ladder against my roof and then army crawled up the icy shingles with 2 butter knives as climbing tools, then began pounding on my window to let him in because it was cold outside. He bought one of those hoverboards, lit 2 smoke bombs, and rode it while spinning in circles as I filmed him until he started coughing so bad he couldn't keep going. He regularly buys designer clothes like polo shirts and Nike shoes and the like. These clothes usually look stupid as hell, like the white polo he bought with a giant tree with a sun behind it. He often gives them to me after like a week because he's like, nah man, I don't want these, what was I thinking? One time he asked me to drive him to Plato's Closet to sell off 2 duffel bags full of stuff like this. I'll never forget his gangster swagger walk back to my car and him proudly announcing, man, I got $20. He once was trying to convince me to help him put a trampoline on the roof so he could use it to jump off said roof into the pond nearby. Took a lot of convincing to explain that he wouldn't make a jump that far. Afterwards, he wanted to have the trampoline on the ground instead. Then I had to explain how in the best case scenario, he misses and hurts himself. But more likely, he'd go right through it and break his legs. The roof is on the 2nd story of the house on that side of the yard. Story 6. My brother tried to kill me. He was 13 and I was 9. He was always a bully and picked on me relentlessly, but this day he threw me on the ground and started choking me with both hands. It wasn't like in a way you see on TV when someone just squeezes your neck, but the correct way, where you jam both thumbs into someone's trachea. I couldn't breathe, couldn't gasp, I just felt cold, and then my vision started to go tunnel vision, and then black. When I came to, my mom had hit him over the head with a broom. I don't remember much after that, but I will never trust him. Story 7. Came downstairs from being asleep. Living room is in disarray. Blood drops are on the floor and I see little flecks here and there on the wall. I say to my GF, what the frick happened? Concerned someone got injured or something. Your brothers had a scissor fight, she tells me. A scissor fight? Yes. These 2 brain surgeons took up craft scissors and went at each other in my living room while my, no doubt horrified girlfriend watched on in shock and awe. They were gone by the time I woke up, thank Christ, but the evidence was hard to miss. Story 8. When I was 16, I went to my family to visit my grandfather at the old folks' home. Well, I ended up striking up a conversation with another guy there who had an Irish accent. After a few minutes, my then 7-year-old brother asks this guy, "Why are you talking Mexican?" He just laughed, but I was so embarrassed I didn't know how to react. Story 9. I came home from college for Thanksgiving and the very first thing my brother says to me is, if you think about it, "Forgive me, Father, I have sinned" is just a fancy way of saying, "Sorry, Daddy, I've been bad." Then, during Thanksgiving dinner, he looked down, patted his stomach, and softly said, "Hey, babe, ready for round 2? 'Cause I sure am." And then he got up and got another helping of turkey and mashed potatoes. Story 10. My little sister, age 11, was a foot taller than me at age 18. I was really small and sick at the time, so couldn't really stand up next to her anyway. She used to beat me with household objects, push me around, and lots of horrible stuff. Parents defend her as just mentally unstable. Yeah, sure. General abuse isn't even the most WTF thing though. That's pretty normal. So I was charged with picking her up from an after-school program called Brownies. She demanded I buy her an ice cream on the way home. I tell her calmly, no, that €1 is for milk on the way home. Mom has asked me to get it. She lost it. Called me lots of names an 11-year-old should not have known, pushed me into the road in front of a car, picked up the milk and walked home, leaving me there having just been hit by a car. She's now 17 and swears it never happened, even though I have the scars to prove both that and all the other times she hurt me or threatened me. The way she attacks me now is by stealing my money and stuff from my room. Parents still defend her, and I'm starting to see why she ever acted like that. I regret ever moving back in with family. Story 11. Technically not my sibling, it's my sibling-in-law. We went on a road trip with my husband's family, including significant others. His half-sister, 18-year-old, was dating a woman she had never met from halfway across the world. She threw tantrums every day complaining that we were not giving her enough privacy for FaceTiming her girlfriend. She would FaceTime her in the car while we were driving to various activities or in the living room of our vacation rental. She had her own bedroom but said she shouldn't have to be locked away to be with her lover. Her words, not mine. She even told her dad and brother to stop using their 4G because they were using up all the data she needed to FaceTime her girlfriend with. They actually got married about a year later. Funny thing is, we all really like her wife. She's cool. But I could take or leave my sister-in-law. Story 12. When my mother was terminally ill, I was her caretaker. My sister was the only other family we had here. My grandparents and aunt all lived about 1,000 miles away at the time. My husband and I had been taking on pretty much everything. Getting mom to the doctor, doing repairs and maintenance on her house. The repairs and maintenance often being out of our own pocket since mom was on an extremely fixed income and medical bills took up every penny, doing the grocery shopping for her, cooking, cleaning, etc. I spent almost every single day after work at my mom's house, and then hours every weekend. I only ever got a break if I was sick and couldn't be around for her, and then my sister would begrudgingly agree to go check on mom. I found out during the last few months of mom's life when my grandparents and aunt finally came to visit that my sister had been telling them she was the one doing all of the stuff for mom. She was making out like I never lifted a finger and she was the only one being an adult and taking care of things. Needless to say, mom set them all straight pretty fast. It was just really hurtful because I had given up so much to care for mom, including putting off having kids, because I couldn't trust that my sister would help care for her if I was pregnant. And it turns out that my only shot at having kids would have been during those years I was busy taking care of mom because my ovaries pretty much failed earlier than usual. My sister contributed a lot financially, and I'm grateful that she did, but I guess that she felt like that didn't make her look good enough to our family, and so she made up all the rest. Honestly, it's been nearly 3 years now, and a part of me is still bitter towards her. I've never confronted her about it because she tends to go all revisionist history with things, and it would be pointless, but it just really hurt. Story 13. My sister and I are 2 years apart in age, she being the younger sibling. Back in the day, we would get up around 5 a.m. to start getting ready for school. At this time, we were sharing a bedroom, as we had moved in with my aunt for a couple of months until my mom could find a job and a place to rent. One day, our alarm clock doesn't go off, so we're rushing around to get ready. We're in the bathroom brushing our teeth after eating a hasty breakfast. I don't remember what I did to her, but I know I annoyed her in some fashion while I was standing behind her. Now, my sister has this uncanny knack of being able to grab a muscle and frogging it with just one hand. She attempted to do this to my leg. I dodged, but not fast enough. Instead of getting a handful of thigh muscle, she got a handful of dong. We were both startled. Our eyes met in the mirror and we both had a WTF look on our faces. She hurried out of the bathroom and we didn't speak to each other for the rest of the day. We never mentioned it to each other or anyone else we know because, frankly, it's just weird. Story 14. When I was young, about 13, my family was leaving my grandparents' house after a weekend visit. It was a long drive home, about 4 hours. I had to pee really bad and my parents hated stopping. So I discreetly grabbed my empty Mountain Dew bottle and emptied my bladder into it. It wasn't hard to hide being in the back seat of an SUV. Well, I put it under the seat after I was finished, and when I got home, I totally forgot about it. My parents cleaned out the car later and my thought was that they threw it away. Nope. They placed it in the fridge thinking it was a half-full bottle of pop. Well, I only figured this out because my sister took a drink out of it and screamed. She said that it must have been old and been in there forever because it tasted horrible. I was horrified, but I took it from her, fake smelled it, and threw away, saying, "Yeah, that's disgusting." I have never told her, or anyone for that matter, what really happened. Story 15. My favorite story is that once I went outside at 1 a.m. to watch a meteor shower and my brother's bedroom window faced the backyard. I don't know why he was up, he was maybe 12 at the time, and I hear him open the window and shout, "Who's out there?" I reply, "It's just me," and he says, "Oh, I'll be right out." My brother gets out of bed at 1 in the morning, puts on some shoes, and comes outside and says, "So what are we doing?" The kid was forever down for late-night adventures, apparently. Story 16. I was an infant at the time. My mom and dad were still married. My brother is technically only my half-brother since he was from a relationship before my mother and father's. There are many, many, many horror stories from when my brother was younger, but this one most directly involves me, so here it goes. My paternal grandparents were visiting, and I was just chilling in one of those sort of egg-shaped baby seat things that you strap the kid into and they recline a bit. My brother was maybe 6 or 7, so he definitely knew better than to do what he was going to eventually do. Grandparents and parents are sitting on couches nearby, having coffee and catching up like normal people do. My brother apparently left his Game Boy near me and I'd picked it up and started turning it in my hands, like babies do with things they're unfamiliar with. I'll note this was in the early 2000s, so this Game Boy was one of the thick red bastards that probably would have knocked someone's teeth out. There shouldn't have been any real genuine concern that a 6-month-old baby was going to damage it. Anyway, my brother sees me observing the Game Boy, and what's his response? Getting a pillow down from the love seat and holding it over my face, literally leaning into it. My grandfather looks over by chance and sees my brother attempting soricide. The old man, a bad diabetic no less, leaps to his feet, snatches my brother right off the ground. My dad gets the pillow off of me and holds me whilst my grandfather is bellowing with rage at my brother, and most likely attempting murder himself. At least had my mother not intervened and defended him. He did get his hide tanned unlike any child before, though. Extra info. My brother and mother are much closer than her and I. I'm like 99% sure it was just because he was a neurotic and jealous kid. He and I are basically normal siblings now, although we did consistently attempt to slaughter each other when he was 16, 17 and I was 10, 11. We couldn't be left home alone with each other. Story 17. Oldest of 5 boys here. To save typing and to protect anonymity, I will refer to my brothers as 2 to 5. I hit 2 in the head with a brick. He hit me, so I decided a simple fist wasn't enough. We were 4 years old and 3 years old at the time. I borrowed a ladder to climb a tree in the backyard. 3 stole the ladder when I got near the top, so I had to fall out of the tree to get down. 4 lit his bed on fire with an incandescent lamp on a dare, and we taught our baby brother how to say BS at the drop of a hat. There are probably more. My mother went fully gray at 30, so there are definitely more. Story 18. When I was younger, probably 10 to 12, my older brother did something that I still think about to this day. My dad, my brother, and me were all getting ready to go see a movie. My brother told me, "Hey, do you know how if you are good at something, you're called a master?" I was like, "Yeah." He went on to say, "So if you were a really good fisherman, what would you be called?" I replied, "A master fisherman?" He continued, and just as I was about to get in the car, he asked quietly, "What if you were a good baiter?" And I exclaimed, "A masturbator!" My dad snapped at me, and I got in so much trouble, and I didn't even know what I was saying. Story 19. When we were teenagers, my cousin was doing a class project where he had to take pictures of certain things around town. One of them was in the lobby of the local courthouse, so he, my sister, and I go there. They almost didn't let us in because we had a camera with us. This was before we were old enough to have cell phones, but it was for a class project, so obviously it was cool. We then asked the guards if we could go upstairs to the courtroom just to see what it was like, which they surprisingly agreed to as long as we didn't do anything stupid. So we go up there and my cousin runs up to the judge's stand and sees the gavel, picks it up and starts banging on the stand yelling, "Objection." My sister spends a solid 5 minutes taking pictures and videos of this while I laugh my butt off. Thankfully, that's the only time any of us have ever been in a courthouse. Somehow. Story 20. I didn't know how to swim, so when I was in a pool, I always hung on to the side. When I was about 9 and my older brother was 14, we were in a crowded public pool. He convinced me to step away from the side of the pool, push my legs, and propel myself back to the edge, convincing me I just float along the top of the water. I pushed with my legs, went forward very briefly, then nosedived to the bottom of the pool. I assumed my brother, who knew how to swim and convinced me to do this, would come down after me. Nope, I was wrong. After being down for about 15 seconds, and just as I was starting to panic and take in water, a hand reached down to pull me up. It was my uncle who saved me. My brother was about 10 feet away by the time I was pulled up. Certainly seemed as if he moved elsewhere intentionally as I almost drowned doing something that he convinced me to try. Story 21. Little sister faked cancer. I live in the UK studying, and parents didn't tell me because they had suspected the truth. Made us feel like a-holes at times because what if she really did? But father, mailman, has a bunch of doctors en route, and he would tell the crazy stuff she would tell us. Burns from chemo, don't have to pay because she knew someone, was still out partying and getting drunk. You know, stuff like that. She would take time off work due to treatment, and her cancer survivor boss was all supportive at first. Mimicked the exact cancer types that took both sides of grandparents with symptoms of my mother added in. Was a massive rift in the family, but about 2 years ago she just stopped talking about it. Turns out, boyfriend broke up with her and that was her way to get attention. Yeah, I lost all respect after that. Story 22. Not the most WTF, but one we still like to joke about. My grandmother generally sends us all cards at Christmas, but a few years ago we all got our cards in the mail and things didn't quite match up. My oldest sister and I got the usual cards with sweet, heartfelt messages from our grandma. My other sister got that and $100. We still call her the $100 grandchild when we're headed to family gatherings. Story 23. My brother severely hurt his right leg in a work accident. His doctors tried to save his leg, but ultimately he ended up getting it amputated. So before he had it amputated, he got around on crutches, or on a day when he was in pain, a wheelchair. During this time, I moved back home to help him get around and do things that he couldn't do on his own. One thing he loves doing is building computers and video games. I would take him to electronic shops and follow him around as he bought games and stuff for his computer. We would go shopping like this more than once a week. I never minded because he's family and we get along really well. We get to know a lot of the staff at these shops. One time I was looking at some DVDs on my own when one of the guys we'd gotten to know came up to me to ask if I needed help. And then he says, "You're a pretty cool girlfriend. You never seem bored or annoyed that your boyfriend spends so much time on his computer." I was so shocked I didn't reply right away, but then I made a super disgusted face and said, "He's my brother." Cue super awkward moment which doubled when my brother came by to tell me we could go and called me Boo, which is a nickname I've had my whole life. that my brother gave me. It was so embarrassing.